Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Game Haus. Now, I know that this is an ongoing story when it comes to the whole Faze clan versus TFue thing, and theScore Esports has done a really good job of presenting every single side of this. And there was a recent video that they did, and it came out. It came out a couple weeks ago, and I've tried to get these guys get Victor and Antonio from BrandyRo back on the phone, but they're extremely busy because they're doing an awesome job with their business and building it up. So I'm grateful that I have these guys back. So guys, thanks for making time for me again. So the recent video.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Hey, yeah, no problem. So the recent video that theScore Esports put out, they did an interview with FaZe Clan's CEO. And he responded directly to the last video that they did, where the score interviewed the lawyer for TFue. And so they went back and forth, and one of the main contentions by TFue's lawyer is that FaZe is essentially operating as a talent agency in California, and they don't have a license. And I watched both videos, and I kind of listened to both of them, and I listened to some lawyers talk, and I wanted to get you guys here. And so for me the core issue of this boils down to, are we defining esports as entertainment or as a competition? And it's a hard answer because it's a gray area to me. You have competitors who make content. The content has a direct reflection on the brand. They're often paid for their content. They're often required to make their content. They're often required to compete too. So for you guys as agents, obviously, how does this whole thing, I guess, how does it all land for you?
Well, here's the deal, Bill. The thing is, first of all, I don't necessarily agree with the with holding court in the court of public opinion when it comes to this and releasing all these videos.
Okay.
Obviously, I think there's something to be said for releasing a statement, but I don't think you go into the nuts and bolts because I don't think it's the proper forum. But
okay.
That being said, I think you're right. But here's the thing: you just mentioned the first word you use to describe some of these athletes is competitors. So you have a distinction in esports that you don't necessarily have in other places. You have a gamer, right, who's a competitor, who, as a result, creates content, but their core function is to compete. Then you also have content creators that's what they do. So there are kind of two subsets of what a talent in this space is. And I think that's where the gray area is and is creating kind of this issue. But you also have, on the other side, organizations that instead of building up their brand and signing deals with companies tied just to their brand, as a result, they have these players within their brand, they're using their players as a core pull to make these deals with these brands. So that's where the issue comes. If you're paying me as a gamer to game and I produce content as well, but then you're selling me as an individual player so that the org can make money, then in a way it's kind of, yes, they're doing both. You have it who's competing, but you're also using them and their popularity to pull in marketing, sponsorship dollars, branding dollars to your organization. So you're representing me as a talent because it's by me specifically. That's like going out and saying, hey, the Lakers, we use as an example. We have LeBron James. Here, sign a deal with us. It'll tie you to LeBron, and LeBron will wear your product and blah, blah, blah. They don't do it that way. It's more, hey, we are the Lakers. As a result of us having LeBron, it amplifies our brand. So as an example, we'll toss out any brand. Pepsi, sign a deal exclusively with the Lakers for the Lakers to have Pepsi as the official drink of the Lakers. because we're such a big brand within ourselves, but also because, hey, LeBron does play for us, but it's not tied to just, hey, sign a deal with us because signing a deal with us means signing with LeBron. It's not necessarily how it's done in professional sports, because in that case, then the Lakers would be peddling LeBron. It's not really done that way. Whether it's semantics, and some people might disagree and say, well, yeah, technically they do, kind of push it that way. That's not really how it's done.
Right, and I think that that's the conundrum I think that we're dealing with, is that an org can't get name recognition and get brand sponsorships unless they have well-known players. But then the other side of that coin is you're asking the player to be the you're essentially asking the player to be the brand, not the team and the org. And it's a fine line, because I really, for me, this goes back to the overall barriers to entry of esports are extremely low. Any five guys, any five girls, anybody can get together, start an esports team, quote unquote, and they can go and they can compete. But not everybody can get together 8 to 12 guys and show up in the NBA, right?
Right.
Right, and there are different parameters there in terms of even if you want to purchase a team, if it's for sale, there's in traditional sports, there's a board of governors. So
Right.
if they don't want you part of the club per se, even if you have the financial wherewithal to be a part of the club, they can prohibit you from being part of that. So that's the first thing, and then with that, I think esports has to be very careful, especially as these as we're seeing an influx of investment from different areas coming in, because part of the allure of esports and part of the growth of it is also the accessibility of it, where I'll give you an example, and I know sometimes I put things in a basketball sense, but with Steph Curry, part of his allure is the average Joe can look at his size and say, wow, if I work hard enough, I can really aspire to be Steph Curry, because he doesn't have the physical attributes of a superhuman. I think to a certain extent we have the same thing in esports. Part of the thing that makes it really appealing, that I'm sure that the esports community as a whole will want to make sure that they protect, is the fact that anybody can play, and which is different than professional sports, because you in large measure you have to be a superhuman. Right. So I think the ability, and that's what as the traditional sports leagues, that's what they are looking for. It's part of the reason, that accessibility, and anybody can play. That's part of the reason why the NBA and FIBA, which is the international basketball body, that's part of the reason why they are a champion 3-on-3 now. It's because it's different than traditional 5-on-5 basketball, because the teams that typically win move the ball, and they use cutting and shooting to win games, as opposed to I have the best athlete on the floor, and I have biggest and best athlete on the floor, which 5-on-5 traditional lends itself to superhuman ability, whereas 3-on-3 is more of the game for the more of an everyman's game. And I think part of the allure for esports is the fact that it's an everyman's game.
Right, and watching a lot of this go back and forth, watching the growth and the expansion, it really reminds me of the very early years of football and baseball, where you really didn't have one professional league per se. You might have had one that was, decently backed, probably had more teams than the other, but there wasn't really a truly defined professional league. So you could have people that, in baseball especially, there's stories of this. You could essentially have people like Satchel Paige. He went, granted, when he got into baseball, he was older, but he went from team to team to team to team over and over and over again for, at the time, he was getting, $200 per game, and he'd show up and throw one game, and then he'd leave town. And I really think that we're seeing the same sort of thought process here, the same sort of development from a business standpoint, is that, you have your older games, CS:GO, you have League of Legends, you have Dota. They're really seen as the pillars of esports. Then you have several games that might have a competitive side, but they also have a piece to them that's more story driven. Then you have other games that are just now being developed that want to be seen as an esport. So I guess, what needs to happen here? I mean, it just seems like that. I saw this on Twitter. I forget who it was, and I apologize for this, but he said, we're in the bottom of the first inning with this. We have a long way to go. We have a lot to define. We have a lot to work out, and a lot of things are going to have to change. So, I mean, what needs to happen?
Well, I mean, I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of more issues arise, kind of like the TFue Faze clan, other stuff arise that's going to require like an assessment and an adjustment. Mm-hmm. And so when that happens, people will start, kind of shifting here and there, because here's the deal: when you're an organization, you're in it to make money. I mean,
right.
Let's, we're in America. Let's not, let's not try to say we're in it otherwise, right? So if anything is affecting your money, you got to make an adjustment, because otherwise you're going to lose money. So anytime something comes up, it's like, okay, how do we avoid this? Now you're going to have that. On the talent side, you're going to have something similar where it's like, okay, so I signed this crappy deal. How do I avoid this next time? Or how do other players avoid this as well? And so these adjustments, same thing is happening. We talked about this offline, but the UFC, right? Still hasn't caught up with all other traditional sports. It's getting there, but it's night and day from now and, let's say, 4 years ago, before I started watching. Like, things are changing, but it requires, kind of roadblocks, people hitting walls, whether that's on the team side, on the league side, whether that's, the players, whether that's, content creators, and people make adjustments. And then, just like traditional sports and traditional business, it's a copycat thing. Industries are copycat. So once one organization or one player go through things, everyone else adjusts around them, because it's the best way. Everyone's in it to make money, whether that's the players, the content creators, the orgs, the developers, the people who are investing in it. It's all about the money. And again, if you're messing with the money, that's a problem. So it's just, sometimes they have to butt heads, because your ability to make money and my ability sometimes are going to be not on the same page, and it's going to be in opposite directions. And that's where some of the collective has to come in. That's why in sports, they butted heads at a certain point to a degree where collectively we had to come together and have a collective bargaining.
Right.
And in UFC, in MMA, you don't have that yet. In certain professional sports, you don't have that yet. In esports, yeah, I agree with the bottom of the bottom of the first inning analogy. It's still a long ways off. But these little, not to say whether TFue's right or Faze Clan is right. That's not really what we're here to say. The point is that there's an issue that arose then now there's going to be adjustments on both sides. And we talked about this a little bit offline. If I'm the team, I'm not trying to hang my business on individual players. Players for me would have to be interchangeable pieces, right? My job is to try to get the best athletes on my team. Same thing as with the Lakers and same thing as with the Yankees. But it still has to be about the brand, about the team. And so I think that's where you'll start seeing an adjustment. And I think we're seeing some of it because you have some larger brand name organizations that are doing a good job about creating themselves to be the entity. And yes, I have players, but they're interchangeable. And yeah, we hope to have, very great players who play for us, but still they play for us. It's not about just the individual players. And I think that's some of the mistakes that were made, kind of early on, and now as we're starting to see some of it creep up. And then on the player side, well, yeah, okay, so now I have to understand what my value is and what my value is to the big picture. It's not just about, hey, I play Fortnite and I'm a great Fortnite player, so how much should I be paid for that? No, that's not the point. The point is, what's your place within the ecosystem? What's your place within your organization that's trying to sign you? And what does you being on that team mean to the team? Because then the conversation is going to be different. And the valuation of your talent is going to be different than just saying, hey, like, okay, I play MLB The Show. I'm not that great, but let's assume I was. Right? If I was just worried about, like, hey, what are you going to pay me to play MLB The Show? That's a very simplistic way of seeing it. I'm going to take anything because, hey, I'm doing it for fun, right? I just got good at it. But if I see it as, okay, having me, like, okay, big news right now. MLB The Show, I think we talked about this before. MLB's been behind on the esports bandwagon. Well, now they're doing a league in China, right? That just came out recently. So if I was a good MLB The Show player and they wanted to sign me to play in China, I have to look at the big picture. Well, you want to sign me for what as an org? Because of my skill set at MLB The Show. Now, what does that mean not only to the org that's signing me, but to the league and to MLB who's investing in this? Now my value is different in that context. And so I think that's where we're going, and that's what we're trying to help players understand. And that'll change the industry for the better. Because the orgs are always going to worry about their money. It's just the players have to get there too. Because they haven't been.
So I think this really goes back to the core issue of that there's the reliable, profitable business model hasn't yet been developed really because you have the upper orgs, you have Optic, you have Immortals, you have Cloud9, you have 100 Thieves. Then you might have 5 or 6 that are next level that have some decent, and then you have 200 feet of space and then everybody else. So about 98% of orgs out there don't, it doesn't, those orgs don't make any cash, and so the problem arises and I think this is the problem. This was the source of the problem with Heco Fox, is that the investors got in early because they saw the numbers and they were sold something that never happened because yeah, exactly, and the investors were looking at it through old eyes, not through the new eyes of what esports is, and we don't even know what that is yet. That's the problem. You know what I'm saying?
No, absolutely. And then sometimes, not to sound paternalistic, but sometimes we as consumers sometimes don't know what we want or what we need until somebody shows it to us.
Right.
So that is part of the issue as well, where if there are brands, or if there is a brand that can be leveraged and is lucrative for everybody, just excuse me, going back to what Victor was saying, the point is, and I guess is one of the underlying reasons why we're in the business, is we want to make sure that that is indeed lucrative for everybody, and so it's just as Victor has alluded to earlier, just as it is the responsibility of the org to make sure that they are growing the pot for themselves, or as the pot continues to grow, that they are responsible. They are making sure that they're responsible to themselves to get a certain percentage of that pot. I think the players have to do the same thing, and it's very easy to, as Victor said earlier, to think that, hey, I'm just playing a game here, and it's very similar to basketball players where it's, hey, I'm playing a game here, and I'm being paid to play a game, and the reality, you start playing that game for pay, it becomes much more of a business whether you like it or not.
Right.
And what happens is the players that are at the very top of that system, back to what you were saying earlier here, Bill, like if the players that are at the very top of the ecosystem, if they're true to their word and want to make sure that they continue to grow that ecosystem and make it fertile for these other, if they want to do that, they have a responsibility to the players that are below them to take every single dime that is available to them. Because what ends up happening is, if you are asking the players at the top of that ecosystem to take less, that means that everybody's taking less. So it is the responsibility of the players, and this is how I see it. If you have been fortunate enough to leverage your ability to play this game and become lucrative for you, you have to make sure that, yes, you're playing for the love of this game, and but you also have to really approach it as a business if you really want to make sure those, as you said, that 200 feet of space between the other competitors and leagues, if you want to shrink that distance, which is ultimately best for everybody, it's hard for you to take less, because again, if you take less, everybody has to.
Yeah, there's a lot that, this is a huge moment for esports, and I think that it's going to be tough, regardless of what happens in court. This had to happen. This whole situation had to come to light. It had to be a big org like Faze. It had to be a big name player like TFue, and like you said, Antonio, sometimes you have to be the parent, and sometimes you just have to say, okay, kids, calm yourself down. This needs to happen. It's going to suck in the short term. This is gonna, I guarantee you, there's gonna be a ton of outrage and a ton of people on both sides that are just screaming and yelling at each other. But I also think in about 18 months, maybe 2 years, we're gonna look back on this and go, yeah, it's a good thing that this all happened. The industry is better overall. There's more clarity. I mean, I personally have a problem with people who say that the player should get everything. I'm like, well, wait a minute. The org has to support itself somehow. How does the org support itself? I mean, I don't begrudge the players getting paid as much as they possibly can, but when it comes to the tournament winning side, when it comes to the brand sponsorship side, the org still has to function. It's the same concept as the Lakers. The Lakers have to get the TV money. If the Lakers don't have their TV money, when
there is no league.
There is no league, right? And so there has to be a very clear delineation between what is the players' money, what is the org's money, and it goes really back to, it goes back to consolidation and collective bargaining, which.
Well, yeah, it goes back to that because, obviously with me and Antonio having our experience in traditional sports, baseball and basketball, mm-hmm. and familiarity with, football and stuff like that, most owners and unions at that level will agree that if 50% of the league revenues are filtering down to the players, you have a healthy league. And I can tell you that that's something that in baseball was very much so. Now, the key there is who ushers that. The team's not going to purposely give you the, what or along those lines. It's up to the people representing the players to ensure. That's why there's a union as well. The union and the agents, the representatives, the advocates for the players, because in essence, that's what a union is. It's their job to make sure that they're being held to that. And the teams will agree that if 50% is filtering down, it's a healthy league. So, one thing that we're facing now in esports is that who's advocating for the players. And so unfortunately, that's where there's a lack. And so you even have, and we've had conversations with players, team members, who are still in fear of asking for what they know they deserve, and they've said, we know this is what we want, are still in fear of even employing an agent, of asking for what they want, in fear that they'll make the other side of the table mad and not have anything. And that's just not and so they're leaving a lot on the table, and we agree we don't believe the players should get everything, because then that would be an unhealthy ecosystem.
Right.
Players have to start thinking in different terms, that asking for what you deserve doesn't mean you're being greedy, and it doesn't mean you're not loyal to your team. You're just asking for what you feel you deserve. Now, your valuation of what you think you deserve versus what the team does might be different, but that's why you negotiate, to come into a happy medium where both sides agree. Another thing that we're facing is we have players who think that it has to be an adversarial relationship. You can still negotiate, ask for what you feel you deserve, and have no animosity. And it's not adversarial, it's professional. Right. Here's the thing, on the team side, these are people who are investing money, business people. So they're not going to look down on you for treating your career like a business. And I think that's where the problem is. So the players are seeing it like almost like a personal relationship. Like, if I offend them, they're going to be mad at me. Why would they do that? It's business for them. Because do you think that they still wouldn't be happy to have you? You know what I'm saying? Because if it was a personal relationship and they were going to be mad at you, they'd tell you, no, we don't want anything to do with you. So just this is an example. We obviously just tossing out the name for effect. But Ninja, if he asked for what he wanted and it was outrageous and the team was like, whoa, we're not ready to pay that. If he lowered his price to something that he felt comfortable and the team felt comfortable going up to, you think they still wouldn't love to have him? They wouldn't say, well, we're offended that you even asked for that. They wouldn't. It's a business. But the players are not seeing it that way. That's some of the issues that we're seeing. And that's okay, because that's kind of at the early stages of where this industry is. So that's going to be some of the obstacles that people like us have to, get past. Because once players do, then when in and of itself, players seeing their careers like a business is going to help kind of balance everything.
Right. And yeah, that right there shows me that esports still has to mature quite a bit, and I'm really grateful that you guys made some time for me. I know that you guys are building your thing and trying to make this work can be a chore sometime. And Antonio, I certainly hope you feel better soon, my friend. You sound sound like you're having a hard time over there. I really hope you feel better soon, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Bill. We appreciate it as always. And yeah, sorry about in terms of connecting, but we always appreciate being on with you and discussing the topics that are important. So totally appreciate it.
No problem, guys.
Second day.
No problem, guys. You are welcome back anytime you'd like. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Check them out on Twitter at BrandyRo Gaming on Twitter. Check out their website too, BrandyRoGaming.com. If you like this video and the other things that we do here on the Game Haus YouTube channel, please like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.